Good evening, everybody. I'm Brett Davis, coming to you from the Blue Lapis studio with the Brett Davis podcast. I'm very honored to finally get a chance to interview Michael Williams, who's a candidate for the Assembly District 80, which is the last of the districts, if I'm not mistaken.
Southwest corner.
He's a former retired naval officer and retired FBI. So why are you running?
Well, first off, I've been a political student since I was about 14 years old. I love politics. I love knowing more about the government history. And also, I've come to be very disturbed with the situation in California.
What are you disturbed about?
Well, when I moved around the world, I was in the military. My dad was in the military, and people used to ask me, "Where are you from?" Well, it's not the last duty station, but I always felt California. My grandparents had been here, and my dad had gone to high school out here, and I felt I had some kind of roots. And when I thought of California, I always thought of that song, "America the Beautiful." When you hear those lyrics, and to me, California came to mind. Yeah, I'm disappointed. I came here. I've spent I've been over 35 years, and to see what has become of this beautiful state. I mean, I'm embarrassed to go downtown and see the trash piles, people living on the street. I mean, California, when I was young, and I think about this is the land of the Beach Boys. This was, sand mountains, the redwood forests, the deserts, everything. It was the laid back lifestyle. And now what do we have? We've got high prices. We've got failing education. Our roads are in terrible shape. And there's just no reason for that. We should have setting the standard for the rest of the United States. And if this is the standard, our nation's in a downward spiral. And I've jumped in this because I think I have some ideas, I have some energy, and I want to make things better.
So, I mean, the thing is you live in Imperial Beach, which is a beautiful, nice, small community.
Right.
Love the people in Imperial Beach. I have a lot of friends there. And everybody seems to be telling you that they're not happy with the current individual who's in the 80th, correct?
Correct. And I haven't found a lot of supporters recently. I've been out walking precincts, talking to people and just asking questions, trying to learn more about what their interests are. I know I'm on this app called Nextdoor, and I'm constantly seeing people complain about the cars being broke in, tagged on their property. These porch pirates going around stealing their packages off their porch. Now these Ring cameras capture it all, and they just feel frustrated that nothing's being done.
What could be done?
Well, we need to enforce the laws. These are called minor crimes in the grand scheme of things. The police are trying to make sure the violent felonies are number one, things like murder, rape, and robbery. But you have to do you have to enforce the laws on smaller crimes. And that includes with the homeless, the sleeping on public land. It's against the law. Municipal ordinances all have that. Vagrancy is against the law. Public urination, defecation is against the law. Public drunkenness against the law. Unless you enforce those, you cannot have a decent community. And people are afraid to go out and walk down the street. If they see the homeless, they'll cross the other side of the street and keep going. And we shouldn't have our communities like that. And we need to do something about it. And what we have to do is, rather than coddle these people, and a lot of them have mental problems, drug addiction and alcoholism are major problems. But we have to, as a community, say, we're not going to allow this sort of free-for-all on our streets. We're going to try to form communities and give them tough love, which means I like this place called the Sunbreak Ranch. I don't know if you've heard of it.
I have heard of it.
They're trying to do it out at Miramar. It's across the country. It's a national effort. But they have a good program. Their problem, well, I'm not going to say it's a problem, but one of the things they have is it's a voluntary process because you can't mandate them. But years ago, I worked for the San Diego City Council, and it was downtown. And one morning, I was down near the Midway Museum, those little grassy areas. And it was quite early, and I found guys sleeping there, rolling up their sleeping bags. They'd been there all night, left their trash. And I went back and checked the municipal code. Well, it's against the law. So I wrote what they call a route slip to the city manager at the time, the city manager. And I said, so why are they being allowed to do this? And the answer that came back from the police department was the courts had said, unless you have a place to house them, we cannot arrest them and put them in jail. And I think that was part of the early problem. But there were alternatives. We had St. Vincent de Paul. Father Joe's program was really good. But you go see him, and he had 9 rules. I think it was 9 rules. So I talked to him. And he had agreed to follow the 9 rules. Fairly simple, civilized behavior. But some of them would refuse to sign and didn't want to follow the rules.
The 9 rules.
The 9 rules. And so you have, the San Diego Mission, you have several others, charitable locations where people can stay. But I'm afraid what has become, because we have a nice climate, it's become a lifestyle for some people.
So what's your thoughts on people coming from other cities and places and being allowed to come here and create more homeless issues? Not only the illegal immigration, but also people from other cities and states that want to live here because of the weather.
Well, that's a problem too. I actually I found a lady. I was walking the bay one morning. I dropped my son at the airport, and she was sitting there. And she had the bag and everything, and she's trying to be very polite and everything. And I walked by and I saw her, and I came back, and she's still sitting there. And I said, "Are you homeless?" And she said, "Yes." And I says, "Are you from somewhere else?" And she said, "Yeah." She'd come from Arizona. Somebody dropped her off, and I said, "Do you know where you're going to go? What you're going to do?" She said, "No." I said, "I tell you what, if you're here in 20 minutes, when I go get my car, I'll come pick you up and take you to a place where you can find shelter." So sure enough, she was there. I took her to Jack in the Box, got her breakfast, and took her to try to find how you get enrolled at St. Vincent de Paul. And after finding the entrance and meeting people there, and I got her in there, and I told her if she had problems, she could call me. But I'm taking a risk, having a homeless person want to call me. But I never heard from her again. But in our conversation, what was so sad, I said, "Do you have children?" Because she was in her, a middle-aged woman. She said, "Yeah, I have 2 sons." I said, "Do they know the condition you're in, how you're living?" She said, "No, I'd be too embarrassed to tell them." So I said, "You need to call them because they would be horrified to find you're living like this."
Yeah,
You're their mother.
Right. So, I mean, these are things that you're passionate about. It sounds to me like you really get involved with this because you care about people.
I do. Always have. I was a Boy Scout.
Still are.
Yeah, I always am. I was an Eagle Scout, and I still have my Eagle Medal.
So what do you think separates you from David Alvarez?
Well, I think I bring a broader perspective. He's grown up here. I think in some ways he's still a city councilman. He's a career politician. He did 2 terms San Diego City Council, ran for mayor, didn't make it, and I think even once upon a time he's probably a staffer, and he is now an assembly member, and he'll probably, he's going for a 2nd term, and this could be a career for him. Work assembly to Senate to whatever. Maybe he has ambitions to be the governor, for all I know. But the problem is he is part of the Democrat establishment. They've introduced this sort of a socialist agenda on across the state, and we're seeing the results of this. We're seeing an overall decline where our budget's in deficit. They've squandered I don't know how many billions of dollars. The money that was given to us for infrastructure and COVID, some of it's missing. I don't even know where it is. The governor is pretty useless as well. But the legislature has to take a tough stance sometimes on people's desires. Everybody has wants and wishes, and legislation has to be done with the head, not the heart. The heart can drive you to want to do legislation, and I think sometimes they think with their hearts, but they don't look at the unintended consequences. The consequences are you do one policy and then suddenly find it's caused all these other problems.
Right.
Like being kind and gentle and not enforcing the small laws, you end up with increased criminal activity.
Okay.
Shoplifting, when we got this Prop 47 that changed the threshold for misdemeanors, now we have people going in mass stealing. And we were seeing stores close their operations, which then penalizes the same people probably from that neighborhood. And they're the ones that are the victims twice.
To people who are really hurting in the state right now, if you get elected, how would you help them with their pain that they're going through financially, or just challenges that every average day party in the 80th district is going through?
Best thing we can do is have a robust economy. And I know they're saying, oh, jobs are there, but I know young people are finding they can't find a job, even with college degrees. We're seeing businesses leave California, taking the jobs with. I mean, I just saw Elon Musk said he's moving his Tesla headquarters out of California. Other companies are doing the same thing. With those jobs go great. I mean, they're great paying jobs
Sure.
and a high tax revenue.
So how do you turn that around for people?
We have to have a review of what we're doing as far as rules and regulations. We have housing shortage and increased cost of housing. Young people like my kids can't even afford to live in, San Diego where they grew up, and they've moved to Texas because it's cheaper. They can buy a house there. There's a lot of great places out there in this big country where you can afford a house, but it's not California. So we need to look at what is this that's causing the high cost of housing in California. Part of it's materials, part of it's labor cost.
Yeah, but we can say that, and I don't disagree. But I also have to say that if that was the case, why are other people buying houses out of state?
Buying them out of state?
Yeah, people are moving and buying houses out of state
Because they're more affordable.
So it's not just those. I mean,
well, they're finding jobs too that can help pay for those homes.
Yeah, but the houses are more affordable. It seems to be less red tape. It seems to be more. Exactly. It seems like it's easier to get a home. And
right.
People don't realize what owning a home can do for you. I mean,
sense of security.
Well, not only that, you can borrow off that home. You can pay for. You can put you can go through college with it.
Right.
There's a lot of things.
You're building up your savings account for your retirement too, as I found.
Right. So there's those things. So I mean, yeah, material costs have gone up everywhere. We've seen how under the current administration, nationally and locally in the state, how everything has gone up. But other people that are moving to these other states and these other cities are finding ways to do it.
Right.
We and being one of the biggest economies in the world, like number 5 or 6, I would think that we should be able to find a way to find the answers, what it would take in order to make it easy for people.
Well, I like to say that maybe we need some rural redevelopment. There's small towns even in California where the population is shrinking, particularly agricultural communities. And I call it be a pioneer. When our forefathers a long time ago on the East Coast, when the population kept increasing, those original colonists there, they had to keep divvying up their farm plots. Well, they got to a point where I can't cut it down anymore. So kids go west, and with the history of the West, we expanded and took away the land, but we now have a country from shore to shore. Maybe it's time that we start looking at being pioneers and filling in some of those rural towns that are beautiful towns on rivers with mountains and all that stuff that were basically agricultural or mining economies that are now in a state of decline. They would love to have young people move there with their interest in the coffee shop, the library, the theater, entertainment. But the beauty of it all, we have this thing called internet. You can pretty much take your job and go wherever you want. And Elon Musk putting up his Skylink is covering the earth. And so you have connectivity, and you'll find that a lot of times it's a lot cheaper. This is like, if you want to look at a city, it's like a hotel. Sometimes there's a point where it says no vacancy. Now, people say, well, I want to live in San Diego. I'll give you an example. When I was a young ensign, I was stationed up at Miramar, and I lived in the bachelor officers' quarters.
And thank you for your service, by the way.
Well, thank you very much. I said, well, I don't want to live in this on the base. I want to live down near the beach. I want to be cool like everybody else. Well, I found this town. It's called La Jolla. And I said, man, this is really nice. I want to live here. Well, I drove around and looked, and I talked to real estate agents. Well, I found a back room in some lady's house that was going to cost me half my paycheck. Well, I moved south, and I got an apartment, and down Pacific Beach used to be affordable. And as an ensign, I managed to squeak by and live there. I mean, when I came back out here later in life with a wife and a kid, we lived in Coronado. I had to really scrimp and save for that, and I couldn't buy a house. And lo and behold, I could afford Imperial Beach, and I've had a great house in 22 years. But I said, it's the same beach as Coronado's beach, except now we're suffering from this thing called sewage. And we can get into that if you want to.
No, it's okay. I think everybody knows about that. And
Yeah,
it sounds like another show.
Oh, it's another show. Yeah.
And the state really hasn't done as much as they should be doing.
No, not at all. Not very little. I mean, to talk about my opponent, he put together a joint resolution that we needed to get Congress to do more funded. And mine is, wait a minute, the sewage originates in Mexico. Maybe the Mexicans should get it done. We put a little more pressure on them to pay for it.
I appreciate you being here. I'm excited about your campaign. And on a final note, you're running because you care about what people are going through, and you want to see if you can help that situation.
Bring some
many of the situations.
Right. I mean, I've had the experience, 5 years San Diego City Council, so I covered a lot of different issues. My first assignment was Naval Training Center was transitioning from the Navy to the city, and how to make a thriving community out of these beautiful, architecturally beautiful buildings. And I think Liberty Station shows what happens when you work together with the community and the business community, and you make a vision come true. It's been a gem. So I helped with that as a staffer assigned to that. Also, at the same time, I used to be assigned to the South Bay. Now, little did I know that there's just something like a 90-something foot strip of land that goes through the bay down to the South Bay, and included the communities of Nestor and what we call Edgar Highlands, which is adjacent to Imperial Beach. That's how I got to know Imperial Beach. But I saw it was a completely different socioeconomic group of people, and they had the same interests and desires as everybody else. They had crime. We got the police more active. We had they had some junk houses and drug houses, and by working with the police, we were able to shut those down and bring a sense of peace and quiet to those neighborhoods. In fact, the Egger Park down there, it's named after the Egger family, some of the original Swiss dairy families that sort of settled that region. And my boss said, we want to name that park Egger Park after the people who donated the land, sort of told to donate sort of because of the tax levels. But they created a lovely park there. It's a community resource. And it was great. I mean, you see something you've accomplished. So I say public service can be frustrating, but it can be very rewarding when you see a project come to life, and it's going to be there for, who knows, a century or more. And you'll watch people enjoy the results of what the tax dollars have gone for.
Sure.
And then give them decent, safe lives.
Well, again, thank you for running. Thank you for caring enough about the citizens in the 80th district. And we look forward to watching your campaign and hearing more about what you want to do.
I appreciate it. And one of the big things with campaigns is it takes money. Donations are slow to come in, particularly if you're an unknown and your first time out. My opponent, he's got a lot of union money. He's got lobbyists, and the big dollars go to him.
Sure.
So mine's shoe leather campaign, door to door, do what I can, social media, and just hope that people will listen to my message and I can get it out to them.
Well, your military background, and there's a lot of military out there. Hopefully they'll be behind you and support you too.
I think that will happen.
You take care.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, everybody, you take care. Let's get behind Mike Williams, of course, for the candidacy for the 80th district, and former military man. And we have his information on the website on there. Okay, we will have that on there. Everybody take care. Be nice. Remember to vote, and we will see you next week.
Thank you, Brett.